Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel for the 7th round of the iRacing IndyCar Open Series and the first actual round of the IndyCar iRacing Series. I got it the right way around that time. We're here at the Circuit of the Americas. Obviously would have been here for the real race this weekend, but obviously everyone stuck inside at the moment, so we go virtual racing instead. It's not a very popular track in iRacing for a number of reasons, but it's actually not that bad. I quite enjoy it. It's got some interesting turns, and it is a tiltdrome, but yeah, I don't mind it that much. And in an IndyCar, it's fun, although I do wish we would have had the slightly more liberal track limits from last year. But anyway, the lap time was 46.031. Not the best lap, as you're going to see. So what I'm actually going to do in the guide part of the video is I'm going to show you the next lap I did, where the first half of the lap was much better, but then I died later in the lap, and I won't show you that. But yeah, so anyway, let's just quickly watch this first lap, and then we can dive into it. So yeah, guys, there it was, 46.03, as you can see on the dash. First half of the lap was pretty scruffy, to be completely honest, but the second half of the lap was really good, really smooth, no off tracks at any point. So yeah, let's go ahead and just continue on with this lap, because we'll gain a lot more understanding of the track. With this one, you won't necessarily see too much time improvement. It was only 1 or 2 tenths, but more important that you guys actually see what you really should be doing. So anyway, coming up into turn 1, now obviously you got this nice big climb up the hill, so you can attack the brakes pretty heavily. And in general here, there's quite a lot of hard braking zones, so you are... If you've got any type of load cell brake, like I do, get prepared to be smashing it quite a bit. But as you come into this braking zone here, you brake kind of just before the white line here. And again, I like to use the engine braking to shift the car down. And you're going to try and hug the inside quite tight, but you want to try and also get a good exit. Let me see, I might need to switch to the chase cam. So if we go back just a little bit, you'll see that right now I'm still angled not in the correct way to exit, despite the fact that I'm already at the apex of the corner. So you really want to get the car turned and then get on the power And what happened in the first lap is, even though I went deep on the brakes and locked up, I then also kind of got on the power too early and ran very wide up onto the curbing. And if you get onto that green part of the curbing, you'll get an off track. So something to avoid. But you can see how progressive I'm being on the throttle. You can very easily spin the rears here, coming downhill. So there is some traction difficulty. Then you're going to hug the inside here of turn 2. Then we go into the S's. Now the S's are one of the most fun corners on the track. I think everyone will agree with that. But you'll see that what I do is I kind of lift and I coast the car through. I do come down a gear here. And that's just something that I noticed my teammate doing. And I like it quite a lot as opposed to trying to charge the corner. That just feels a little bit harder to kind of do every lap consistently. And so as you go through the second part here, very slowly going to get on the brakes. Just a little slight little application of them to scrub off some more speed as you go through the next part. Now what you want to try and do is you're trying to set up this next double right-hander quite nicely. So the last lap, I was very much on the right side of the track, if you guys remember from the hot lap. But this time around, I'm much more in control of the car, trying not to hit any of these cut curbs, because they will be potential race enders. But what you can see is I'm trying to line up here to use as much of the off-track as I can without getting an off-track. And I don't think I got an off-track here. I think I got away with it. But what you're trying to do is set up on the very right-hand side of the track here, because ideally you don't want to use the brakes going down into this corner. What you can do is, if you're not so tight on the line as I was, I kind of compromised my entry, but you can let the car roll freely through the corner. Just use a bit of engine braking. And you'll see I get a little bit loose. But then you come here, and this is a very important part of the S's because you have a nice run down towards another heavy braking zone, so you need to get the exit here right. But hard on the brakes, and you're going to try and hug the inside of this little chicane here as much as you can. Now you can, again, get an off track here if you put all 4 wheels off the track, but I ride the line pretty okay here. And then it's all about how much you can stay on power through this next little kink. You can see I come down to about 50% throttle as we work through the left-hander, and that's just because the car gets very light. Just because of the way it cambers over this this crest. I'm using all the wrong camera controls here. But as it, naturally crests, the car just gets light, and so it's all about just balancing the car on throttle and then getting to full power as early as you can on this next little run. And now again on the last lap, I locked the brakes quite a bit, but what you're trying to do is brake around this white kind of track marker on the right-hand side of the curb. Also, the 100-meter board on the right side as well is something you can use. But again, very hard braking here. Almost, I think that might have been 100% for a little bit there, but trying to get all the braking done as early as possible. But what I noticed is that you can kind of roll the car a little bit more. And so that's what you see here, rolling the car. And until you get to the apex again, because of the way that this, it's not a regular hairpin in that it will curve, naturally. This is much more of a sharp kind of point that you're trying to hit. And then as soon as you're at the point, if you can get it so that, I'm just going to use the mouse for a second, but if you could get it so you're even more straight, potentially, you could attack the throttle, even more than I do here. But trying to attack the throttle, running all the way out to the edge of the track there, and now you're just running down this long back straight towards the second half of the lap. And now we'll quickly just switch back to the first lap that we did, because this is the battle lap. But you'll see that was the big mistake I made in turn 1. And you can see there, actually, if we quickly go back. I think I took this corner much better this time around. But you can see I do get all the way to the right-hand side here, and I'm able to just roll the car a bit more. Even though there was a bit of uncertainty in the steering action, it still I carried the momentum well. So just, quick detail that we can point out. And then we'll keep running down. Yeah, this is, again, I locked the brake. Went really deep, not ideal. But yeah, here we go. So coming up to the back half of the lap now. And this is where all the slower corners are, lots of hairpins and switchbacks. So just two different styles of the track, and we'll talk more about that later. But braking at this white marker, it's also the 100-meter board. And again, braking hard. But this is slightly downhill as you get towards the apex. So you have to be a bit more careful, and you can see me being a bit more careful on the brakes. Then you want to try and get as close to the yellow anti-cut curb as you can. I personally prefer not touching the curb at all. It just doesn't unsettle the car at all, like the red part of the curb even. If we go back, you'll notice here, that's kind of intentional on my part. I think it works a little bit better. So yeah, just ignoring that little bit of the curving. Then all the way over to the left-hand side here, there's no real visual braking reference here, so you kind of got to judge it by feel. If we go back a little bit, I mean, you can maybe use the grass on the right-hand side, but yeah, not really any visual braking reference. But again, just now you're trying to set up for the next little corner, and it's a very tricky braking zone next time. So hugging the inside as much as you can here. You're going to get on the throttle pretty carefully because the rear can snap on you. And you're going to try and then cut as much of this next curbing as you can. Not too much because you get a slowdown. Sorry, an off track, not a slowdown. But then you've got this left-hand braking zone that's very tricky, and you can always lock the left front. And you can see just how early I'm braking. I actually take quite a wide line. I do lock the inside, and that's something you just got to deal with. You can't really mitigate that too much. Getting all the way down onto the apex and then picking up the power again. And this time, making sure I run out all the way out to the track's width. You can see I actually get a little bit on the green. That's totally fine. No off track. But that's obviously a corner where no matter what series, you're going to have issues. And another corner that reminds me of is at Bahrain, you have a very similar left-hander. So it's a fairly popular type of corner right now, and it presents a very interesting setup challenge. Now, something I should have talked about earlier, but again, weather settings for this session are PDS weather. And in this weather, you can't take this triple right-hander flat out. You have to lift a little bit, and you can see I don't lift that much. I'm content to kind of ride the middle line here. I tried running much higher and much lower, but I found that the kind of middle groove for that triple right-hander works well. You do track out quite nicely to the left here. But then you got the very tough turn 19, and you kind of have to brake just as you come to the edge of the curbing here. You can just about still see it in the edge of the shot. I'll just show you there, right there. That's kind of where your braking reference is. And this is, we obviously saw the IndyCars when they first came here running all the way wide, but unfortunately in iRacing, you can't do that. You will get a slowdown and an off track. So you have to try and clip the curbing as much as you can here. This is one case where you can use the anti-cut curbing without any issue. Doesn't unsettle the car at all. And so, yeah, you just have to make sure you don't get on the green. If you go too far, you will get a slowdown. So just, again, see if there's anything. Maybe in the cockpit view, you can get a better appreciation. But it's a very tricky corner. Don't have a great visual reference of the turn-in either. You can see just how much I'm trying to cut the curb and ensure I don't get an off-track or slowdown here. And now come to the last corner. Fairly, you know, it looks fairly easy, but it can be quite hard, both under braking and throttle. So braking just before the white line here. And it is an uphill braking zone again, so you can attack the brakes. But then as you come through the curbing, again, it just starts to crest a little bit and camber slightly differently. So getting the power down can be slightly difficult. You can see slight uncertainty in my right foot there, and kind of going, yeah, a little bit more, no, a little bit more, until I got there. But yeah, that's the lap. So I think the trickiest thing for a lot of people is the fact that it's got a lot of blind apexes, and for people on single monitors, that can be a really difficult thing. We can quickly just go ahead, and if I bring up the weather, so we'll just quickly show you. Actually, that doesn't look like it's the right weather. Yeah, okay, so that's not the right weather. The correct weather, 22 degrees Celsius on the track temperature, 46, sorry, on the air temperature, 46, track temperature. Wow, that weather is really wrong. Okay, that's threw me off. So let's hide that. Excuse me. But yeah, so there's the weather settings. It's a fairly warm track, but despite that, the reason I was going to bring up the weather is I talked about it at the last corner, the triple right-hander rather. When you do some generated sessions with the race date, the wind settings actually let you go flat around there. But then the S's are a little bit more tricky. So wind will be an interesting thing to deal with dynamic weather during the week. Something else to consider is you can go two different approaches here with the setup. So the PDS setup feels a little bit stiffer. I'm not trying to say too much, but PDS setup feels stiffer, whereas the VRS setup is a lot softer. And now the VRS setup feels a lot better in some of the slow corners, definitely gets a lot more time. But then through the S's and some of the other higher speed corners, struggles a bit more. So maybe you can play around with that and find the balance there that suits you better. Maybe you need a little bit more help in the slower stuff or the faster stuff, vice versa. Sometimes coming out of turn 1, there is a little bit of on-throttle oversteer. There's not really too much you can do about that. Now, you could try and mitigate that with setup stuff, but at the same time, what you will find is just the way the track is falling away from you as you're applying the power. It's always going to be tricky, and so, yeah, that's just something to consider. But yeah, other than that, not much to really talk about in terms of the track guide. I hope that helps you. I try to keep it quick this time. I'm trying to get a little bit more concise and just show you guys a bit faster some visual references on the track that will help you. But yeah, if you had any questions, please do let me know. Lap time 46031 using the PDS weather and PDS setup. All that, again, will be in the description below. If you have any questions, pop them down in the comments below. I'll be happy to respond. If you like the video, just remember to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. That just lets me know that I'm doing content that you guys like to watch. And yeah, good luck for the first round of the IndyCar iRacing series if you're going to compete. It should be a lot of fun. Beginning of a long year of racing for the IndyCar community. So yeah, hope to see you guys on track and see you next time.